We're back now with our CBS correspondents who've been covering this story. Jim Axelrod and Michelle Miller have been on the scene in Newtown and are there again this morning. We're also bringing back senior correspondent John Miller and justice correspondent Bob Orr for any late details they may have. I would just say, Jim Axelrod, all of us are reporters because we like to cover big stories, but this is not the kind of story that you want to be covering.
Bob, I was just walking around Newtown and I was thinking to myself, this is the saddest place I've ever been. It's stunning, the feeling of grief that has descended over this town. And I was thinking, unlike Aurora, Colorado, where I was this summer, there's no diversion. There's no booby-trapped apartment that police are trying to get into or a first appearance in court. There's no diversion here. It's all grief. And it is, as I say, paralyzing and stunning and unlike any place else I've ever been.
Michelle, it must be hard for you too. What's going to happen up there today?
Well, what we know is that President Obama will be coming in, and I think that means a lot for the folks here because it's a validation that it's not just their community that is suffering. It is certainly a pain that is being felt throughout the nation. One man said here that, you know, evil entered this town, came to this town on Friday, but what has been wonderful is that since then, love has poured in from all across the globe.
Jim, it's our understanding they're going to start these kids back to school Tuesday or Wednesday. I asked the governor this morning, did he think they were ready? What's your sense? What sense are you getting up there of whether the people are ready to send these kids back to school?
Well, they're still certainly talking about it. The superintendent, of course, was quoted as saying sometime this week, though certainly not at Sandy Hook Elementary. The district will sort of resume, but it seems to me that you're talking about the week leading up to Christmas break. I'm not sure what the value is of sending kids back Wednesday or Thursday. You know, when you've had something like this to gather yourself, why don't you start back in January? That's the feeling as well up here from some folks that we're speaking with as well. But of course, I think this thing is so fluid and trying to get the arms around such emotion that nobody has had any experience in dealing with, that I think there's a little bit of let's figure this out as we move along this week.
Michelle, I think probably the saddest scenes we're going to see we have not yet seen, and that is when they begin to have these funerals for these small children in those small coffins. Do we know when that's going to take place?
Well, we know that none are taking place today. We haven't gotten or received word from the coroner when any of the funerals are set, but we are told that we will be notified.
All right. John Miller, any late news on this investigation since we started this morning?
One of the things that I think was striking that we learned last night was the response in the school. I mean, you had mentioned with Bob Orr earlier when the officers came through the broken glass, the gunman had shot out, spotted him, and saw him duck into a room and then heard a number of shots. But in the background, when they got there and they started to go room to room and they started to find teachers had locked children in classrooms, in closets, in cloakrooms, in bathrooms, and when the SWAT teams got there and said, we're the Newtown PD, we're the Connecticut State Police, you can come out now. In a number of cases, the teacher said, if you're really the police, you'll be able to obtain a key, but our training tells us we don't open this door for anybody. The idea, as we've discussed, that this is some kind of new normal, that they, had been through these drills enough, that they were that well trained, that they stuck to the protocols when many would have panicked, really tells us the level of professionalism and also the disturbing reality that they have to practice these things and learn them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really kind of, if there's anything to feel good about here, it does seem that the teachers were well trained and carried out their part. And if there were ever a time when we can appreciate teachers, this certainly was one of those times, Bob.
Absolutely, Bob. It's so difficult for all of us to get our head around what happened there because it's inexplicable violence. You know, I covered airplane crashes for 14 years, and every time the question was the same: why did this happen? And at the end of the day, we'd go through this painstaking fact-finding process, and we would often come up with a why. And in some ways, there was some satisfaction there. What I'm afraid of here, this is the most gut-wrenching story I've seen in a long, long time, is eventually the police will probably be able to explain this. They'll probably come up with what looks like a plausible scenario and a motive. And I will tell you now, it won't be satisfactory, because logical people in their right minds, will look at what the police explained as they lay this out, and they will say, that still doesn't make any sense to me. And what I'm really afraid of here is we will never have an answer that we can accept here.
John, what do you make of this information? We keep hearing, we hear about the smashed computers. We heard the lieutenant say our searches and so forth have been successful. Do you think they're near anything, or that they have uncovered anything that is leading them to some sort of a motive, as irrational as it might be? Because it's going to be irrational, because this person is obviously mentally disturbed. Nobody does something like this for a logical reason.
Bob, I don't think they have the answer, but what I do believe from the people I've been talking to is that that a set of answers are coming together to form a picture, and those answers involve tension between Adam Lanza and his mother, tension in the larger family, including issues that arose out of the divorce that split the family up, as well as the potential emotional problems that Adam Lanza was having. I think when they bring all that together, they'll come up with something. But as Bob said, I don't think when we hear the answer, if there is a final one, that we're going to shake our heads and say, now I get it.
Michelle, from you and Jim, just a final thought quickly, and we're very close to being out of time.
Well, the one thing that I've been noticing, just standing here talking with police, is that people here, in their grief, want to be productive. They want to do something. So you see people, neighbors, coming up, bringing food to the police officers here. You see them trying to look for ways to make things easier for people. They want to help. And I think the grieving process over the next several weeks is going to be important for them. And as Jim mentioned, it's the reset. They want to start over. The question is, for everyone, when that will be.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you, and I don't envy you having to cover this story.